I'm Dione Rivera, Assistant Director for Career Development. I've worked as a teacher, counselor, career coach, and consultant throughout my career. And what I love about my job is I really get to see people's aha moments and help them reach their full potential. With me is Julie McShane, who is our Director for Career Development and Alumni Relations. Julie, please share something about yourself and, of course, about our esteemed guest.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Dione, for putting together this webinar today. I'm Julie McShane, the Director of Career Development and Alumni Relations for the Fung Institute. And I've been on campus since 2008 and working with the Fung Institute since 2011 when it was founded. So I've been with the Fung Institute since its first cohort. And I can truly say I love working with engineers and in the tech community, and am passionate about leveraging career education to help people move forward in their careers. So thanks again for joining us this morning and taking the next step in your career with us in the MEng program. And I know you are all tuned in from all over the world, so we appreciate it, even if it's really late or early where you are. And now I would like to turn it over to our feature presentation, Wayne Delker. He is joining us today from Boston, Massachusetts, and he has more than 30 years of experience in business leading innovation organizations and developing innovation processes, capability, and culture. As the CIO of Clorox, he led worldwide R&D for all of the company's products. During this time, Clorox achieved a record level of growth from innovation and was recognized as an innovation leader. Recently, we had the pleasure of having Wayne serve as the Executive Director of the Fung Institute. This role combined his lifelong passion and how to bring together engineering expertise, innovation skills, and leadership to solve world problems and prepare people for future careers in science and engineering management. And he will talk about that today. His current project, because he never stops, consists of all volunteers and really embodies engineering leadership and is a partnership between university, business, government, and nonprofit organizations to help organize and distribute donated sleep apnea machines that have been retrofitted into ventilators. And this project is called Ventilator SOS. I've linked to it if you want to read more about it. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Wayne. Wayne, thanks so much for being with us here today.
Thanks, Julie. It is a pleasure to be here. As Julie said, what we're going to talk about is one of the things that, in fact, has been a passion for me for quite a few years. As Julie said, I've been in R&D engineering and innovation leadership for closer to 40 years now. Time flies. And over that period of time, I've developed to just observe some patterns that I really wanted to share. And I really believe that this concept of bringing together engineering excellence and technical excellence with inspirational leadership is truly transformational. And it's transformational at two levels. It's at the individual level where you're building your career and you're transforming it's also the global level where you're reaching problems, really solving the world problems. At the personal level, what I saw, and all of you that are on this call are outstanding engineers, you wouldn't be here, okay, or technical folks. What I saw, however, when folks go into businesses, there's a little bit of a divergence that occurs. Some folks, some young engineers will actually go in, they'll be curious about how the business works, understanding how technology fits into the total business, very actively learning about how to be on a high performance team and then lead a high performance team, and then finally really develop inspiration leadership skills. Those folks go on to great careers. You know, the sky is the limit for what they can do. There's another type of engineer that just doesn't quite get there. You know, they're still really, really smart, but you know, you can sit and watch them in meetings and they'll make a great comment, really won't have any impact. Those are the folks that really don't develop those skills that I talked about, and they just stay focused on their engineering expertise. And they become generally kind of constrained within a box. And sometimes that works for them. You know, they still provide value, but only a fraction of the value that they could provide if they had developed those other skills. And often being in constraint like that leads to disappointment and frustration. So after I left Clorox, I decided that, this is kind of what I wanted to do, which is help young engineers and scientists kind of start that journey early so that they can really create this great career for themselves and not fall into the traps. Probably even more importantly is at the world level. We're at a time where there's tremendous change. I don't need to tell you that given what's happened over the past several months. But there's great opportunity, great breakthroughs in computers, artificial intelligence, robotics, clean energy, genetics, and a whole variety of medical technologies that are arriving on the scene. On the other hand, there's also tremendous problems in climate change. Now, of course, pandemics has made it self-evident, but also things like food and water scarcity, things we've always had to deal with. And if you look at both these opportunities and these challenges, they all have a very high technical content. What the world needs is leaders who are experts at understanding the technology, but also inspirational leaders that can kind of bring those two together and come up with really shaping the world. I look at it as shaping the world. What you guys are doing is, you're on a journey. You're probably already leaders in some respects, and with you're attending the Fung Institute, it'll just help you accelerate that journey to become the next group of folks that are really going to shape the world. So that's kind of why I'm here. I wanted to be fairly brief to give folks a chance to ask questions, and I'm just going to open the floor to questions.
Thank you, Wayne, for sharing your insightful experiences on how engineering leaders could really transform the world. And as a reminder to the participants, please feel free to type in your questions in the chat box. We'll begin with the first question that I have here. How do you combine engineering and management skills in your career?
That's a great question, kind of the essence of what we're talking about here. And what I've observed over the years is that combination almost occurs in 4 fairly distinct steps. The first is when you join the company, you are largely being hired because you're technical experts. So you need to become really respected for the technology value you bring. And part of that is really establishing a track record for yourself. So basically, that becomes your foundation of credibility. Kind of the second phase is taking that broader perspective of not just focusing on the technology and the engineering, but taking a broader perspective. How does that fit in the entire business or organization if you're working in a government agency or a nonprofit? How does it all fit together? And what that allows you to do is really start to become a technical thought leader. And then that builds your influential skills across the company. Third phase is really all about taking on informal leadership roles. These aren't necessarily promotions or specific assignments, but they're opportunities where you can start to become a leader. And this is with a leader of people. And this allows you to start to learn people's skills really, and how to motivate and inspire folks. And then phase 4 is actually you will get your first leadership job in terms of becoming a manager, because you actually, throughout the course of these phases, you really shown yourself in terms of the value you can bring to the company. That process takes about 3 to 5 years typically. Sometimes it's a little faster than that. And one of the things that's really important to remember, or at least I found important to remember, is you're learning every step of the way, and that learning never stops. To become a leader and to be a leader, it means you're on, you will never stop learning how to get better. So I hope that helps answer the question. And it's a fun journey.
Yes, thank you, Wayne. And in relation to that, can you describe your path to how you are to where you are today?
Very much just as I described. Basically came in as I actually started with a company you probably never heard of, Union Carbide, which is part of Dow Chemical, as a process engineer chemist. And we were doing process development. basically, I kind of had that curiosity to try to learn more and to do more. I think the North Star for me has always been, how do I create the most value for the company? And I was not one of those people, and not to say there's anything wrong with this, but I was not one of those people that had a very programmed career path. For me, the question was, what can I do right now in my current job to maximize the value to my team and the company? And do that, and if you do it well, I've always found great things happen. So I popped up the technical ladder in technical assignments for about 5-6 years, and then started to make the transition into leadership, and then kind of went up successively through 2 different companies, GE and Clorox, to being Chief Innovation Officer.
Thank you. I do have a next question here that might relate to the technical ladder that you were mentioning. If you are not a technical genius, does it mean that you cannot be a leader?
No, not at all. In fact, some people would say technical geniuses have more challenges in becoming leaders, because oftentimes those folks always try to solve problems themselves. One of the best pieces of advice, because I was going up, and it was about 5 years into my career, one of the best pieces of advice I got was from my boss at the time, who asked me to really be honest with myself. And did I get most of my real personal satisfaction of bringing value from solving problems myself, or from helping other people solve problems? And if I really got my satisfaction from solving the problems, and many of the technical geniuses do fit in that category, then we probably want to go stay in technology, continue to develop as an engineer and technologist. And most companies have a way of doing that. And that's really, I just also want to highlight a point that's really important, that you're still being a leader, even in that aspect, but it's more technical leadership. If, however, what you really enjoy doing, and I fell into that camp, is helping other people be successful, then people management or people leadership is probably the right path. Those folks almost are very rarely the technical geniuses on the team. They've really focused on the question of, how do I make my team and how do I make my organization be more successful? So it's far much less about what they do as a technical genius, and it's far more about how they help their teams succeed. And that takes a lot of skills. It's not easy. I mean, I'm not saying one's easier or harder, but it takes a lot of skills, but they're different. It's how do you have empathy? How do you really understand how to communicate with people? How do you help them solve problems? Things like that. So I think there are 2. So if you're not a technical genius, do not worry at all. You can be just an outstanding leader.
Thank you. There's another question here about mentorship. Do you think somebody needs a mentor? And if so, how do you recommend finding someone who will be a good mentor?
I think mentors are really valuable, and they will be different at different points in your career, and the value you'll get out of it is different. I admit I've probably done more mentoring of people than I've actually had my own mentors, but it's been very valuable when I did have one. The way to go about it is, one, you have to have a certain chemistry with the person. Okay, I mean, it's just like any relationship. Some click, some don't. So find people that you really get along with well. And what you need, what a mentor can really do is, at least I found the most valuable thing a mentor can do, is actually be a safe sounding board for your own development. So when you have ideas you may not want to share with your organization or your boss, you have a mentor there who you can test those ideas with and share. He will give you feedback around how they're reacting to it, and then you can kind of help. Your mentor will help you discover your way. Mentors aren't, they're not telling you what to do, right? They're not really developing you. What they do is they help you grow yourself by providing a very safe and nurturing environment. And I think that's valuable. Normally it happens naturally. I mean, some companies will have no formal mentoring programs, and that's worth participating in because it's never bad. But generally, they'll just develop naturally when you talk to people that are experienced in the area that you think is an area you really want to focus on.
Thank you. Another question here is about attitude. What is the best attitude for an engineering leader aspiring to become somebody who can shape the world?
That's a great question. I think in terms of attitude, first you have to truly believe you can change the world. Okay, so I say what that really comes down to is have a commitment and a passion and energy. I mean, a lot of people talk about saving the world, but it really does take action and work. The second attitudinal thing I think is really important is a bias to action. Kind of builds on the first. So you have the energy, and then there's a bias to action to do things. You don't do them, foolishly. You take measured risk, but you always act, and it's that action that ultimately leads to progress. And then I think the third attitude that's really important, and this is particularly true on the leadership dimension, is one I've touched on briefly, which is the realization that it's not about you as a leader. It's about your team. It's about your organization. It's about how they will transform the world. An example I use a lot from my Clorox experience. During my time at Clorox, my team took Clorox from being a copycat innovator who would look at what the other companies were doing and copy it, put it in the market. Took it from that to being recognized by Forbes magazine as one of the top 100 innovative companies in the United States. And none of that was me. That was my team that did that. And my attitude that allowed that to happen is to just focus on doing everything I could to engage others and kind of help the team move forward. So I think that's probably the most important. I think it's a big trap that some folks fall into, that, it's all on my shoulders, it's all me. And if you take that, and some people like Elon Musk are, smart enough and, do things that they can do that. But for most folks, it's more about how do I energize and activate a team of people? And once you do that, you can conquer the world. You can transform anything. You can take on any problem. It's a tremendous feeling. And that's where that's when as a leader, we're here talking about leadership. That's when as a leader, that's when you've really made a difference. When you get that team feeling that they can do anything and nothing can stop them. And it's a great feeling.
Wow, you mentioned something about leading a team. How about when you're the team member in that group? How do you inspire creativity and innovation?
Yeah, great question. And I'd actually build it on it. It is important to be able to take that team to be innovative, but some of the principles I'm going to talk about in answering that, because they're very dear to me, apply to any team. Okay. And the first is the single most important thing is you have to build trust. The teams run on trust. Okay. And a team that trusts each other has successful, and one that doesn't generally crashes and burns. So what do you do on a team to build trust? One, and this may sound counterintuitive, but it's listen. Okay, it's take the time to listen to what your teammates are saying, and then do whatever you can to help everyone be heard. Okay, and get them into the discussion so that you've got one team all working together. The second is your own personal credibility, and the thing to do there, I think, is follow through on commitment. So when you say you're going to do something, do it so that your teammates can really count on you. And then third is developing an attitude of supporting each other. We used to call it, we have each other's back. I don't know if that translates globally very well, but you as a team are responsible for your team member success as much as, and in fact, more than your own personal success. Once you bring together listening and inclusion, follow through, and a true commitment to the team's success and the team member success, even over your personal agenda, you create this attitude I talked about earlier of this team has tremendous team self-confidence. They can do anything in the world. And then to make them innovative, you have to turn them loose on how do you really create new things? And in my experience, innovation is all about managing uncertainty. When you're going and innovating, you're going into a space that's never been done before, and there is so much that's not known. What you need to be able to do is have your team figure out how to very quickly experiment and iteratively test hypotheses and try to go from an very uncertain state through a learning process to get to where you actually need to be. And usually in the Fung Institute, you're going to learn something called agile innovation, which allows you to do that. Many of you may have heard of it as agile development. It's kind of a way of actually just driving those learning cycles very, very quickly. But it all really comes down to, but ironically, the hard part of that is creating the team that has this incredible sense of power, and then turning it loose in a way that you can learn very quickly.
Thank you, Wayne. Looking at the time, I think we can squeeze in one last question. If you could give yourself an advice when you first transitioned from school to working, what would that advice be?
Sure. Great question. And it's probably a couple things that I've already talked about because it's very important to me. The first is have a curiosity about the organization that you've chosen to join. Okay, so when you go in, try to learn as much as you can. Okay, because you're going in most likely a technical role, which is only part of a much broader organization. And the faster you can learn how your technology integrates with all those other pieces, the more effective you'll become and the greater the value you'll have. The second thing I would give myself advice on, and I didn't do particularly well on this, was getting to know people, building relationships, network with everyone. Try to really form that informal network. I love this expression, pay it forward, in terms of when you're networking with somebody, don't go into it thinking, hey, here's what I'm going to get out of it. Go into it thinking, hey, what does that other person need that I'm talking with, and how might I be able to help them? You do a lot of that, and you start to build a group of people around you, okay, that are invested in your success. So you kind of become leader of your own personal team if I use that. And then the third piece of advice I would have given myself is really have a bias for action. Over my career, I probably spent too much time planning things that were unknowable, uncertain. And I think the whole world has kind of gone through this transformation of going from a very, what's in software is called waterfall development, where everything is planned out years and years in advance, over to this more agile process that I talked about. That exists on the personal level. There are times when if I look back and, kind of mistakes I made or opportunities I missed, it was almost never from acting too fast, right? It was almost always from procrastinating, from thinking, oh, I just need a little more data to make that decision. I need to do this other experiment, or I need to do something else. And I would have done much less than that. I would have said, okay, what action can I take right now, here today, that's minimal risk, where we can manage the risk, that'll take us in the right direction. We'll get there, we'll do that, we'll get there, and then we'll reassess. And if that was a good thing, we'll do more of it. If it was a bad thing, change direction and do something else. I wish I would have developed that mindset much earlier. So hopefully that answered your question. I don't know, Deanna, that's a good one.
We're so grateful for you to be with us, Wayne, today. And we're really sorry to let you go because we have tons more of questions. Definitely, guys, you can reach out to Wayne through LinkedIn. We'll share his LinkedIn information with you through this slide that you will be receiving later. And I'm sure that the students will heed the call to the challenge of being a transformative leader, and will be something that they'll be happy to take on. Thank you very much, Wayne.
Excellent. Thank you all very much for inviting me. There was a question we never had a chance to get to that I saw pop up on the chat, which is all around innovative organizations. I'd love to also come back and talk to folks about that, if that makes sense. And then please do reach out to me on LinkedIn if there's any of your questions that we couldn't get to in the group because of the lack of time. I would be glad to answer that in much greater depth offline, so we have some more time. So I'll thank you very much, and good luck on your coming year and this next step in your journey. You're going to find it incredibly exciting and rewarding. So good luck to you all.